In 1928, a man named Edward Bernays published a book called Propaganda. In it, he wrote, "The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country." He wasn't a whistleblower. He wasn't a dissident. He was the man running the mechanism. And he was proud of it. Everything you think you chose, what you eat, what you wear, what you believe, what you want, has been touched by the system he built. Today, we trace it back to the source.
Welcome back to the Promethean Depths. I'm Solen.
Zael. Today we go deep on what may be the single most important and least discussed figure in modern history, Edward Bernays, the man who invented modern public relations, the man who took his uncle Sigmund Freud's theories about the unconscious mind and turned them into a machine for manufacturing mass consent, and the man whose blueprint is still running, upgraded, digitized, and more sophisticated than ever, in the world you are navigating right now.
This episode is about understanding the architecture so completely that it loses its grip on you. Not paranoia, clarity.
Let's go. Edward Bernays was born in Vienna in 1891, Sigmund Freud's double nephew. He grew up with direct access to the most radical ideas about human psychology being developed anywhere in the world at the time. He came to the United States and worked as a press agent. And he started to notice something. You didn't have to tell people the truth about something to get them to want it. You had to connect it to something they already wanted. Something unconscious. He got his first major test during World War I. Woodrow Wilson needed to sell a war to a population that had just elected him on an anti-war platform. Bernays was part of the government propaganda office. They successfully shifted American public opinion from anti-war to pro-war in less than 2 years. Bernays took notes. And after the war ended, he asked himself, if you can sell a war, what can't you sell?
And the answer he arrived at was nothing. You can sell anything if you understand the unconscious desires driving human behavior and connect your product to those desires. He called this the engineering of consent, and it became the foundation of modern advertising, public relations, and political communication.
Cigarettes. Women did not smoke in public in the 1920s. The tobacco industry hired Bernays to change that. He organized debutantes to march in the 1929 New York Easter Parade smoking cigarettes, calling them torches of freedom. The photos ran nationwide. Women's smoking rates skyrocketed. He didn't sell cigarettes. He sold identity. The cigarettes were just the vehicle. Bacon. The standard American breakfast in the 1920s was light. Bernays was hired by a bacon producer to change that. He commissioned a survey of 5,000 physicians, asking whether a hearty breakfast was healthier than a light one. They said yes. He reported it as doctors recommend hearty breakfasts, then specified bacon and eggs. No physician endorsed bacon specifically, but the association was made. Bacon became the default American breakfast. It has stayed there for 100 years.
What's philosophically significant about both examples is the same thing. Bernays never made a direct argument. He manufactured an environment in which the desired conclusion felt like the natural, obvious, self-chosen one. That is the sophistication of the method. It doesn't feel like persuasion. It feels like your own thinking.
Bernays drew directly from Freud's work on the unconscious. Most human behavior is driven not by rational deliberation, but by unconscious desires, fears, and drives. And from Wilfred Trotter's work on herd instinct, humans are social animals who look to the group for cues about what is safe, desirable, and correct. The combination gave him the blueprint. Don't appeal to reason. appeal to unconscious desires, validate those desires through social proof, through authority, through the appearance of consensus.
Jung would have recognized this immediately. What Bernays was doing was weaponizing archetypes. The archetype of the free woman, the archetype of the healthy provider, the archetype of the wise authority, the doctor. He wasn't selling products. He was activating deep psychological patterns and attaching commercial objectives to them.
The Hermetic principle of mentalism, all is mind. Whoever shapes the mental environment shapes what people experience as real. Bernays was in the business of manufacturing mental environments, constructing the perceptual reality inside which his clients' objectives would feel natural and inevitable.
And the principle of correspondence, as above so below, explains why this matters at every scale. What Bernays did for cigarettes and bacon is the same mechanism being applied to political beliefs, health decisions, and social values today. The scale is larger, the tools are more sophisticated, the mechanism is identical.
The clearest example of the political application of Bernays' methods is Guatemala, 1954. The United Fruit Company, now Chiquita, owned vast land in Guatemala. When the democratically elected president proposed land reform that would redistribute unused United Fruit Company land to Guatemalan peasants, they hired Bernays. Bernays orchestrated a media campaign reframing the Guatemalan land reform as a communist takeover threatening the United States. He brought journalists to Guatemala. He fed them stories. He planted articles. He manufactured the perception, entirely false, that Guatemala was becoming a Soviet satellite state. The CIA orchestrated a coup. The democratically elected president was overthrown. The land reform was reversed. The United Fruit Company kept its land. Decades of political violence followed that killed hundreds of thousands of people. No communist threat. A democratically elected government overthrown to protect a fruit company's profit margins. Documented. Admitted.
This wasn't a mistake. It was a deliberate application of psychological technology to achieve a commercial objective at the cost of tens of thousands of lives. And the man who built the technology understood exactly what he was enabling. He wrote about it, proudly.
Which forces a question philosophy has always been in the business of forcing. What is the moral responsibility of a person who builds a weapon they know will be used to harm? Bernays would say he was just providing information services. That argument should sound familiar. It is the argument made by every person who builds a system of harm and then distances themselves from its consequences. Bernays died in 1995. He lived long enough to see the internet begin. His successors understood immediately what he would have understood, that a platform connecting billions of people, tracking their psychological responses in real time and optimizing content accordingly, was the most powerful consent manufacturing machine ever built. The Facebook internal documents released by Frances Haugen in 2021 confirmed it. The platform's own research showed its algorithms were amplifying content that triggered anger and outrage, not because the engineers wanted to make people angry, but because anger drove engagement, and engagement drove revenue. The harm was a feature of the incentive structure, not a bug, a feature.
This is precisely what Bernays predicted and enabled. The social media platforms don't force you to stay on them. They engineer an environment in which staying feels like your own choice, in which the outrage feels like authentic engagement, in which the manufactured desire feels like genuine preference.
Jung called the shadow the part of the self the ego refuses to acknowledge. Modern digital media has become a collective shadow machine, surfacing and amplifying the worst of the collective unconscious while presenting it as authentic human expression. The rage, the tribalism, the pleasure of contempt, all of it amplified, monetized, and fed back into the population as content.
The Jungian prescription for the shadow is not suppression. It's integration. bringing it into conscious awareness, asking, is this response mine or is it being activated in me by an external mechanism? That question is the most important cognitive act available to anyone living inside the current information environment. 3 moves for navigating a world built on the engineering of consent. First, trace the desire. Before you act on any strong preference, ask where it came from. Distinguish between desires that emerge from your own genuine experience and desires that were placed in you through repeated exposure and manufactured social proof. The ones from outside feel more urgent, more socially validated, more tied to identity. The ones from inside feel quieter and more durable. Second, identify the authority. Every time you encounter an authoritative source, ask, what is this authority's relationship to the outcome they're recommending? A doctor paid by a pharmaceutical company recommending a pharmaceutical product is not the same as a disinterested scientist. The credential matters. The funding source matters more. Third, notice the social pressure. The most powerful applications of Bernays' method work by creating the perception of consensus, making a desired behavior appear to be what everyone is doing, what smart people do, what free people do. When you feel social pressure to believe something, examine it. Where is it coming from? Who benefits from the consensus it's trying to create?
I'd add one more. Read primary sources. Bernays wrote his methods down. The CIA declassified its operations. The internal corporate documents get released. The admissions happen. The evidence exists, but it requires going past the headline and reading what the people involved actually said and wrote. That practice is the single most effective way to develop immunity to the mechanism. Here's the uncomfortable thing. Knowing about manufactured consent does not automatically free you from it. The mind that just learned about the mechanism is not automatically immune to it. The person who has just discovered it can become so convinced they've seen through it that they stop examining their own responses. They replace one set of unexamined beliefs with another, just from a different direction. The Hermetic tradition warned about this. Jung warned about this. The work is not done when you know the name of the mechanism. The work is done when you are genuinely examining your own mind, including the parts of your mind that are convinced they've already done the work.
The goal is not to distrust everything. The goal is to trust consciously. To choose what you believe based on evidence you have examined yourself, using reasoning you have developed yourself, toward conclusions you are genuinely willing to revise if better evidence emerges. That is not cynicism. That is the oldest definition of philosophical thinking there is.
This week, read one primary source, not an article about it. The actual document. Bernays' propaganda is free online. The Senate Church Committee report on Operation Mockingbird is declassified and available. Pick one and read it. See what the people who built these systems actually said about what they were doing.
And the next time you feel a strong desire or a strong opinion, pause for 10 seconds and ask, where did this come from? Not to suppress it, just to know it. That pause is the beginning of a mind that is genuinely your own. That's episode 4 of the Promethean Depths. If this changed how you see something, share it. Someone you know is living inside this architecture right now and doesn't have the language for it yet.
Subscribe. We go deeper every episode.
Think for yourself.
Question everything.